Difference between a static method and a class method. What is the difference between a function decorated with its static method and one decorated with a class method?
Maybe a bit of example code will help. Notice the difference in the call signatures of foo, class_foo and static_foo. Below is the usual way an object instance calls a method. The object instance, A, is implicitly passed as the first argument. With class methods, the class of the object instance is implicitly passed as the first argument instead of self. You can also call class_foo using the class. In fact, if you define something to be a class method, it is probably because you intend to call it from the class rather than from a class instance. A .foo1 would have raised a type error, but a .class_foo1 works just fine. One use people have found for class methods is to create inheritable alternative constructors. With static methods, neither self, the object instance, nor CLS, the class, is implicitly passed as the first argument. They behave like plain functions except that you can call them from an instance or the class. Static methods are used to group functions which have some logical connection with a class to the class. Foo is just a function, but when you call a .foo you don't just get the function. You get a partially applied version of the function with the object instance abound as the first argument to the function. Foo expects 2 arguments, while a .foo only expects 1 argument. A is bound to foo. That is what is meant by the term bound below. With a .class_foo, A is not bound to class_foo, rather the class A is bound to class_foo. Here, with a static method, even though it is a method, a .static_foo just returns a good old function with no arguments bound. Static_foo expects 1 argument, and a .static_foo expects 1 argument too. And of course the same thing happens when you call static_foo with the class A instead.
A static method is a method that knows nothing about the class or instance it was called on. It just gets the arguments that were passed, no implicit first argument. It is basically useless in Python. You can just use a module function instead of a static method. A class method, on the other hand, is a method that gets past the class it was called on, or the class of the instance it was called on, as first argument. This is useful when you want the method to be a factory for the class, since it gets the actual class it was called on as first argument. You can always instantiate the right class, even when subclasses are involved. Observe for instance how dict.frankies, a class method, returns an instance of the subclass when called on a subclass.
Basically, a class method makes a method whose first argument is the class it's called from, rather than the class instance. A static method does not have any implicit arguments.
To decide whether to use its static method or its class method, you have to look inside your method. If your method accesses other variables / methods in your class, then use its class method. On the other hand, if your method does not touches any other parts of the class, then use its static method.